Hello lovelies, welcome back to my channel. My name is Bree if you're new here. I just post a lot of bookish content. Sometimes I like to throw in a little bit of lifestyle and home in there too, but really just books and lifestyle is my main thing. So that was so southern. Wow. Today I'm going to be talking about the first 10 books that I have read in 2025. It's my January wrap up that I'm finally getting around to posting. I don't normally post a lot of wrap up videos because I never know if you guys really will enjoy them or want to hear my thoughts on the books or take any of the recommendations I have for you on some of the books that I have read on previous TBRs before, but a lot of you guys were commenting on my last TBR video, my February blindly picking my TBR, that you did want to see a wrap up of all the books that I read in January. So I'm going to be doing that today and I'm very excited. I cannot express to you how good of a reading month I had in January and just the best TBR I think I've ever had from blindly picking my TBR every month. So if you want to go and watch my blindly picking my TBR video for January, I'll make sure to put it up. I think it's right here. I think it normally will pop up here. If you want to see the pulling my January TBR or maybe my February TBR, I'll pop either or both up here for you guys to click on if you want to watch those, but they are just on my channel if you want to watch them after this video too. They're super fun. I love posting them. It seems like you guys enjoy watching those, and a lot of you again did say that you really wanted to see a wrap up of all the books that I read in the last month. Now, I know I said 10 books. Technically, I read 9 in the month of January, and that did include every single one of the books on my TBR, aside from one that I'm currently in the middle of, and that is Magnolia Parks. I will be getting to that one to just chat about just a smidge bit on my thoughts so far while reading it. So Magnolia Parks is technically my 10th book of 2025. Not fully complete with that, but I did want to throw that out there before you guys are expecting a full 10 books. I'm talking about 9 in a little more detail, and then one that I am currently in the middle of. So I hope you guys are okay with that. I just figured I'd go ahead and throw that in there though. Firstly though, I'm parched and forgot to put in my little liquid IV pack into my water. Sometimes I just love to have a little flavor in my water. I'm not a huge flavored water girly, but when I am, I like to have a liquid IV. I love these so much. And I found a bulk pack of them at Sam's Club recently. So this is the golden cherry flavor. This one is so good. And it came with golden cherry and strawberry, I think. So I can't yap the amount that I'm about to yap if I don't have my water just like ready to go. I'm about to go in on these books because it was such a good reading month for me. So let me mix this up really quickly. All right, let me show you just the stack really quickly. I know if you watched my last video, you already saw the January stack, but I'm just gonna show it again so that you guys have kind of a heads up of what we are about to talk about. So all of these books plus 2 more on my Kindle I will be talking about in this video. So just at a quick glance, this is what we're talking about today. So the first book that I read in the month of January is The Secret Book and Scone Society by Ellery Adams. This is one that I had to read for one of the book clubs that I'm in, and I did enjoy it. It was definitely a more cozy mystery. There were a little bit heavier topics in there that I think did definitely elevate the story some, because whenever you go from reading like very high stakes fantasy or very in-depth emotional romances, that kind of thing that I typically gravitate towards, to go from that to just like kind of a lighter genre is very hard for me to rate higher, especially if there's not a whole lot of like deeper meaning to the book, if that makes sense. So I was glad that there were some deeper topics. I probably wouldn't have rated it as highly as I did, but I did really enjoy the book. Basically, it's set in, I think it's called Mystic Falls. Let me see. It's called Miracle Springs. So sorry. The main character in the book is Nora. She owns a bookstore. It's called Miracle Books in Miracle Springs. Everyone that travels to this perfect and cozy town will stop for a scone at the scone shop next door and then pop in to talk to Nora. Her specialty is being able to recommend really good books to people to get them through certain things that they're going through in life. So that is kind of what like hooked me at first with the book. So she ends up setting an appointment with a man who is supposed to be coming back to discuss in deeper detail her book recommendation that she has for him, but he never makes it to his appointment because he is found dead on the train tracks of the town. So the whole book you're trying to figure out, did someone kill him? Was it an accident? Did he do it on purpose? Like, we don't know. It did keep me pretty engaged. I think I did miss like some snippets of detail here and there just because I did listen to it audibly, and sometimes I'm not the best listener when it comes to audiobooks, especially if I have a lot going on or a lot of things on my mind. My mind tends to wander, and the whole point of reading for me is not to do that. It's to like settle and get my mind off of things. Not that I don't love an audiobook. Depending on the book, I will be locked in. But this one, with it just being a little bit lighter, I think there were some things that I did miss throughout it. So when we got to book club, I was like, oh my, I forgot that happened, or I don't remember that happening. My bad, I'm so sorry. But I did finish it, and I do remember like most of what happened in the book. It is a series as well, and a lot of the girls in my group are moving forward with the series, which I think is great. Me personally, I probably will not move forward at this current moment just because there's so many other books that I want to read, but I think in the future, if I need like another cozy mystery, I definitely would go back to the second in the series. So all in all, with that one, I did end up giving it a 3.25 stars. I think that that is a great rating, especially for the genre that it is and kind of just what I explained earlier. So if you're looking for something just a little bit lighter and cozier, but you also want that kind of engaging aspect of a murder mystery that keeps you really into the story, you know, you're wondering what's happening, you want that kind of like a little bit of an adrenaline pump, but it's not like a straight up thriller, this is a great one to go with, I would think. The next book that I read in January is The Happy Ever After Playlist by Abby Jimenez. I loved this book. I love this book, but y'all know that's just not a surprise at all. Abby Jimenez is just, there's just something that she does with her writing to me that is just so good. Like, she is one of my very favorite authors of all time, and I absolutely ate this book up. I loved it so much. It is a friends to lovers trope. There is a little bit of spice in there, but nothing like too crazy. But you basically follow Sloane, who is an artist who's just trying to get back on track with life after something really tragic happens in her past, and she's just trying to kind of find herself again, but she's been kind of lost just in the mundane of life after everything happens. One day she's driving down the road just minding her own business, and a dog decides to shoot in front of her car. She slams on the brakes. Dog ends up jumping up on top of her car and climbing up into her sunroof, dropping down into her car. And so she kind of feels like it's just destiny at this point. She's like, okay, well, I guess I'm gonna take this dog home and see what I need to do with it. Like, what in the world? What do I do? Like, how did I end up in this situation? Lo and behold, it ends up being a really popular songwriter's dog. His name is Jason. You're kind of following what she ends up having to do with this dog while Jason is on tour. It is hilarious, but there's also some really deep topics in it too. That is just the thing I love so much about Abby, is that while she can have such a good romance and a hilarious bit of banter between the characters every single time, she also always touches on deeper topics, and it makes the connection, at least for me personally, from myself to these characters just so much deeper. I love it so much. I love the emotion that her writing gives me. I can laugh, I can cry, I can be angry. Like, I just feel with every book that I have read by her so far. So I loved this so much. Also, all of her books for the most part kind of interconnect in some way with the characters. So one of the characters, more side characters, shows up in another book that I've read, or maybe even a couple at this point. I don't even remember because they've kind of gotten all jumbled up in my head. But when I realized the connection to another book that I've read with certain said character, that it's so cool to me that she does that. And she also always includes like animals in her books. If you pay attention to all of the covers of her books, I'm pretty sure all of them have an animal on the cover. She also always throws in something about Nadia Cakes, which is the bakery that she owns in real life, which is also so cool. This book was just so good. It was so much fun. I actually started it at the very end of December and then finished it in January and absolutely loved it. I mean, I'm just not shocked at all that I loved it so much. It's Abby, so that's all I gotta say. I will just say before you read it, some of the deeper topics in here, though very brief, a couple of them, you may want to just check the content warnings pretty quickly just before you pop into this one, or maybe even Google certain chapters so that maybe you can just like skip over those chapters. But other than that, my star rating for this book, I did give a 3.5 stars. Compared to her other books that I've read, this one is, even though I loved it, literally loved it so much, when I compare it to Yours Truly, Just for the Summer, and Part of Your World, this one didn't hit as hard as those did, but 3.5 is still such a good rating, like definitely above average. I loved it so much, and I would definitely recommend if you think that that kind of storyline sounds good to you, because it hit. And Jason is great. Jason in this book is great. Next, where is it? Oh, there it is. Next in January, I read The Inmate by Frida McFadden. I love me some Frida. I love me some Frida. She just knows how to write a really good mystery thriller. Whenever I need something that's going to be fast paced, is going to get my adrenaline pumping a little bit, but nothing too crazy. It's not going to like freak me out and like not make me sleep at night, and just like have really good kind of backstory as well with the craziest twists. Frida is always one that I will gravitate towards. Always and forever. Love her. And she is one that I am constantly recommending to others whenever they're looking for something like that. This one, you follow Brooke, who is a nurse practitioner she gets hired as a nurse practitioner at a prison in the town that she just moved back to, that she grew up in. She moved away for a certain reason, and she moves back to this town. You kind of go from there. The back of the book literally says, as a new nurse practitioner at a maximum security prison, Brooke Sullivan is taught 3 crucial rules. 1, treat all prisoners with respect. 2, never reveal any personal information. And 3, never ever become too friendly with the inmates. If that doesn't say enough. It was so good. Compared to some of her other books that I read, the Housemaid series, top tier so far from what I've read by Frida. This one, second. So good. This one, very close second. If you haven't read this yet, I would definitely recommend picking this one up. It was so good, and I rated it a 4 stars. The next book I read was The Light of the Fireflies by Paul Penn. This one was one of the books that I included in my last reading vlog that I posted, if you want to go and watch. I had a lot of emotion while reading this book. I don't know if y'all could tell in that vlog or not, but this one was one that I had to read for the other book club that I'm in. There's a lot that I could say about this, but you guys would just have to read it and then message me so we could get deep about this, because it's crazy. It is a dark fiction. I would say maybe thriller. Definitely read content warnings on this one too. This is just, it's so crazy. Number one, I don't even know how to explain this actually. You follow a little boy who has lived in a basement for his entire life. He was born there, raised there with his family, his mom, dad, brother, sister, and grandmother. And he's never once stepped foot out onto solid ground, like out onto the earth. So you're following from his point of view for most of the book, and it is just such a wild ride. You are trying to figure out why they are living down in this basement. Also, all of them are deformed aside from him, because before he was born, there was a really big fire that happened and his family almost didn't survive it. Eventually, you figure out what happens with the family, why they ended up down in the basement. You learn a lot about every single one of the characters, and it really just has you thinking, am I okay to have the thoughts that I'm feeling with reading this book? Because there were times that I was thinking, you know what? Maybe I would do the same thing. But then other times I'm thinking, this family is horrible. They're horrible. Holy moly. So in my mind, I just had this turmoil happening where I would go back and forth between the two of I am horrible for thinking this way. And then also on the other end of it, I feel so bad for them. What in the world? What is going on? There was just a lot happening. It's really sad. I felt so many emotions with it. The ending, I feel like could have been more. And that's all that I'm gonna say. I think you guys just need to read it if you want to read something that's gonna make you just feel like you're being smacked in the face left and right. It was just nuts. And there's really I can't really say more than that. But I did end up giving this one a 3.75 stars. There was so much to talk about with book club, and thank God that I had other people to talk about this book with, because there's no way that I could just contain all of this emotion that I was feeling with this book without talking about it with someone. It was just nuts. So I would definitely recommend it if you are looking for something that's going to keep you really engaged, has short chapters, you don't mind a child's POV. There's certain character that I'm they needed justice and they were just done so dirty. But if you've read it, please message me on Instagram because I've got to chat to someone about it. Again, just check the content warnings. The things that happen in the book that are really horrible are pretty brief, but I would say definitely just go ahead and check the content warnings before you pick it up. Also, the author that wrote The Light of the Fireflies is Paul Penn, and what I thought was so crazy about the book is that it was translated from Spanish, and me not know that it was translated from Spanish to English, mine was blown because I just would never have guessed. That's how smoothly it was translated and how well it went while reading. So anyway, after that, I read The Very Secret Society of Irregular Witches by Sangu Mandana. Definitely a big change up from The Light of the Fireflies, I will say. This one is definitely a feel-good book. It reminded me so much of The House in the Cerulean Sea. Very much gave the same kind of feel-good vibes. It was deeper, emotional, but not too emotional. There was humor in it that was just so good. You fall in love with so many of the characters in this book, and it was actually my first witchy-esque book, but so many of my close friends have told me that I needed to read it for so long. And so finally I did whenever I pulled it on my January TBR, and I'm so glad that I got around to reading it. This one was just so warm and uplifting and heartfelt. As a witch in Britain, Mika Moon basically knows that she has to hide her powers. She can't be too close to other witches because if she is, then power will start to kind of mingle. And she's basically just been alone for most of her life. She was orphaned at a really young age, and she starts posting online pretending to have powers and gains a really big audience. She gets a message after posting online about her fake power, basically asking her to come and teach younger witches how to control their magic, which basically breaks all of the rules that she's been taught her whole life. So you're just following her journey with that and her journey with these younger witches. It is so heartwarming. It's so sweet. Definitely fast-paced as well, and there is a bit of romance in it. I really enjoyed it, and I'm so glad that I had friends that were telling me to read it for so long. I don't know why I didn't pick it up sooner, but I'm so thankful that I did pull it on my January TBR because it was so sweet. I just enjoyed this one so much, and I ended up giving it a 3.75 stars. Next up, I read Expiration Dates by Rebecca Searle. I loved this book. For it to have been under 300 pages, might I add, 256 pages in the hardback version. It's a romance / literary fiction. You follow Daphne in this one, and every time that she meets a man, she also ends up receiving a slip of paper somehow with the man's name on it as well as a number. And the number correlates to the amount of time, whether it be hours, days, weeks, months, years, that she'll end up being with this person. One day though, she gets set up on a blind date, and the slip of paper that she receives only has a name on it, Jake. It was so good. Again, to be so much shorter than the average book. I loved it. I loved her. I loved a certain other character, actually two other characters in the book, and I love that it went back and forth between her present day to going through other dating experiences that she's had in the past and what has led her to where she's at now. It was so good, and I ended up giving this one a 4.5 stars. I loved it so much. I would highly recommend. It kept me wanting to know where the story was gonna go. I love the difference in this to like some of the other romances or just like fiction books that I've read. It gave the tiniest bit of the 7-Year Slip vibes, just like the tiniest bit. Nothing too crazy, but I just really enjoyed it and would definitely recommend that you read it. If it sounds like something that interests you even a little bit, I would recommend. It was so much fun and I could not put it down. The next one that I read was The Deal by Elle Kennedy. This was my very first Elle Kennedy book. It's also a hockey romance. There's definitely some spice in there, but I absolutely loved it. This is the first book in the Off-Campus series, which I had been hearing so much about, so much about, and I'm so glad that I finally had pulled this one to read. One of you guys actually sent this to me, and I'm so thankful that you did because it is definitely up there in one of my favorite like romances. Definitely my favorite hockey romance so far. Like this one outbeats Icebreaker by a lot for me personally. I loved it. The tropes in this one are definitely like sort of like enemies to lovers vibes. You're following Hannah and Garrett on dual POV chapters, which I just love. I eat it up every single time. To be honest, Garrett's chapters I loved even more than Hannah's, and a lot of the time I get a little bit annoyed when it comes to like the male POV every once in a while. It depends on the book. Some books I'm like, I could do without. But this one, absolutely loved. I loved me some Garrett Graham, okay? So incredibly good. I loved Hannah too though. Like definitely would maybe do a reread of this at some point once I complete the whole series and just go back through and see where everything started. Their banter back and forth, oh my gosh, so good. Just to give like a little bit of background on both of them, Hannah is a super duper smart music major girl, and Garrett is definitely a like broody, hot hockey player at the same university. Hannah ends up with a little bit of a crush on some other guy, and Garrett, who is in one of the same classes as Hannah, is currently like flunking the class, and he really needs a tutor to get him through. Basically, they strike up a deal that Garrett is gonna try and put the eyes of her crush on her by kind of like fake dating each other, and that's like the whole deal, literally, is that they're gonna fake date so that her crush will notice her. It's so good, and there are some like deeper things in there too. Just loved it so much, and I need to get my hands on book 2 immediately, okay? This one I ended up giving a 4.25 stars. Would read it again. Incredible, literally so good. Next up, we have Scythe by Neil Shusterman. I don't know. Now I get why all of you said that I needed to be reading this book for so long. I pulled it on one of my way back when TBR picking videos, and I don't know why I did not pick it up sooner than January when I pulled it again. Thank goodness I did, because I cannot stop talking about this book with everyone that I know. Like, I am trying to get so many people to read it because it just was so good. It was so good. So this one is a young adult dystopian slash sci-fi type of a book. You follow Citra and Rowan in this one. They live in a basically perfect world at this point where there is no death. The only way that you can fully and completely die is by being gleaned. So in this world, you have what are called scythes, who are basically these very like high up people who have the power to glean others. This is basically the only way that is morally acceptable at this point to have some sort of population control with the way that the world is now in the book. Like, just thinking about it, I can't wait to continue the series. Like, it was that good. This one also, I had pulled a ticket that said that I needed to annotate the book, so I did tab and underline a lot of stuff in this one. I have so many thoughts on it. It really gets you thinking, like, is this a perfect world at this point? Like, would it be better for the world to be this way? Is it moral to live in a world like this? Is it moral to be a scythe? Citra and Rowan are brought on as apprentices to see if they are good enough to become a scythe. They've got a full year of apprenticeship to learn how to become a scythe, and they compete to see which one is going to become a scythe. I just absolutely devoured this book. Like, I am still thinking about this book, and I've got to get book 2 of this series immediately. I just loved it, and it really got my mind going. There was so much that happened in this one that just really had my mind like going. It was incredible. I would recommend if you want a really good dystopian-esque book. I loved it. And I need to know what your all's thoughts are on this one as well, because it was so good to me. I ended up giving this one a 4.5 stars. It was incredible. Then I read Wild Love by Elsie Silver. All I gotta say, Ford Grant. Oh my gosh. I absolutely loved it. Every single character in this book. The Rose Hill series is definitely gonna be one of my top romance series. Like, I cannot wait to get my hands on Wild Eyes. I think that's the second one in this series. But you're basically following Ford Grant, who is this big billionaire, and one day a kid ends up at his front door, his stoop, if you will, and basically is like, "Hello, father. You're my dad. You're my biological dad." And he's like, "Wait, what is happening?" So you're kind of following that with him and this 12-year-old girl. I ended up falling in love with just all of it. And then on top of that, you've got Rosie, who is the female main character, and just seeing how things develop and just relationships, not only between the two main characters, but also the side characters too. Oh my gosh, it was so good. Such a fun ride. If you're wanting a good romance that is good and heartfelt, has some deeper stuff in it as well, pick this one up if you haven't already. It was amazing, and I gave it a 4.25 stars. Oh my god, I love it. And look how pretty this cover is. Like, I can't get over that. I cannot get over that. I love it. So that is all of the books that I completed and have finished in January. And then I am in the middle of Magnolia Parks by Jessa Hastings. Y'all, I already love it so much. I am 35% of the way through. It is so incredibly toxic, but I cannot put it down. What's wrong with me? I'm already so connected to these characters, and like, for what? The toxicity is absolutely insane. You want to hate the characters, but you also can't. You just love them. And that's just how it goes. It's definitely Gossip Girl vibes, but it is UK. These young adults are literal billionaires and are just like flaunting around town, but they're so toxic. And I'm eating it up. Why? Also, Jessa Hastings' writing, her prose, her phrases that she throws in these books, just willy-nilly left and right at the end of every paragraph. I'm like, are you joking with me? She knows how to write. Oh my gosh. I have not finished this book. As I said, 35% of the way through. I can't wait to talk about this in my next wrap up. If y'all want a wrap up for February, I love it. And I love every single one of them. I hate them and I love them. I'm going back and forth. There's turmoil just going on in my brain at every chapter. I cannot put it down. I'm about to end this video right here so that I can go ahead and get this one finished because I just love it. I'm loving it already. Also, I'm so glad that I got my hands on the OG cover of this one. I also have the OG cover of Daisy Hates, and I'm hoping to get my hands on the rest of the series too in the OGs. I have no rating for it, of course, but it's gonna be up there. I feel that it will be a very high star rating, so I'll keep y'all updated with that. If any of you guys have read any of the books that I just talked about, please leave me your comments down below. This one was a good one. Like January, I didn't have anything under a 3-star. That's crazy. So please let me know what your thoughts are on any of those books or what you might end up reading this month. I would love to know what you are picking up for the month of February. Also, don't forget to subscribe to my channel if you want to see more videos like this. I just love having you guys here. I'm so thankful that you guys watch my videos and chat with me here and over on my Instagram. I did just make a Bookstagram recently. If you want to go follow it, I'll leave that right here somewhere. And yeah, that's pretty much it for this wrap up and the first 9 almost 10 books that I read in 2025. I hope you guys have a great rest of your week and a happy Valentine's Day. Love ya. Bye.